Welcome, everybody. We're on episode number 2 of Office Hours. I'm Chris Wooley, the photo professor, and we're going to be looking at and critiquing images. So figuring out how we can improve our images, start looking at them and the decisions that kind of go behind them. We've got quite a few today, and I've been loving all the feedback. You guys have been so kind and generous about telling me what I'm doing wrong and what we can do to improve, as well as what's going on right. So just know that I do appreciate that feedback. It helps me improve. For instance, one of the things that I really want to do this time around, and don't let me forget on doing it, is that we do these edits and changes, would love to get your feedback on them too. Is it improving what we're doing, or is it not quite working so well and we should go back to how it was? Just because something's my opinion doesn't mean it's always the right way. Don't tell my wife that. But that is kind of the direction that we're going here, is that we're looking at perspective. So what works for me might work better for somebody else, or might be a different technique to play with. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. We've got 8 images today I want to look at, and it's going to be fun. So up first, we have here Old Man in a Desert Diner. And so this one's from Janelle. And so we're looking at it for competition. So is this going to work for competition pretty well? So looking at our primary subject, this man's got some character. I'm just blown away by the storytelling that's on here. It's sitting in this old diner environment. He's got kind of that gruff feel to it. I want to know what he's going to say, but maybe I'll sit 2 stools away so I can just overhear and not necessarily have to engage, because he's got some shenanigans. I just know it. So looking at the image, we've got that storytelling element, which I really appreciate. But when we're pulling in and starting to look at our subject, I'm getting really caught up on his shirt. So we've got this bright area right here that's almost the brightest thing in the image, if not the brightest, and it's competing directly with his face. So we want to make sure that we're kind of adjusting the tonality so that we're staying right where our subject is, and then we can explore the other areas. Also seeing that the background's really, really dark, and that means that we kind of miss out on some of the storytelling elements of it. Where is he? What's he doing? Why should we care about this guy? So let's look at how we can do some of these changes. I'm going to make a duplicate layer. That's Control or Command J as we're doing this, just so that we can start working. I want to pull up my favorite tool for doing everything all in one, and that is Camera Raw Filter. So with Camera Raw Filter here, I'm going to go ahead and work on the background first, just so I can see what these edits are going to look like. So I'm popping over to the mask section, and I'm going to hit background. And it's going to do some thinking, and it's going to select most of the background. So this is just for me doing demonstration stuff, so I'm not going to worry too much about this bottom part. If we had the original file that we could work with that hasn't been processed, we wouldn't have dipped so deep down here in these blacks, so we can still work on it. So this red is just a quick mask showing me what I'm looking at. And I'm just going to lighten up the shadows in that background so we start to get some dimension that's here, maybe brightening up just a little bit, and we're going to lower the contrast on it. So again, we're just kind of getting the feeling, is this a better direction or worse direction? Nobody knows yet. So we're just kind of lightening this up. And so my background's now selected, and I've got it so that we've got a little bit more environment that's coming with our subject. Next thing I want to tackle is this really bright arm that's coming up. It's kind of pulling my attention away. So I'm going to create a new mask, and we're going to come down here to select people. I love these masking features inside of Lightroom and Photoshop. With this, I can just say, hey, let's select his clothes. So one click, I can get his clothes. Don't have to worry about his hands or his face or anything going on. Just going to select that one, and let's pull down those highlights just so it's not quite so dark. And now his clothes are feeling pretty dark, so I'm going to lighten everything up just with those shadows and a little bit of exposure. It's there. We'll bump that one up just a teeny tiny bit too. So a much flatter image, but now we've got focus that's coming up here. We've got an environment that's setting up our scene, and we've got some nice direction coming up to our primary subject. I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK on this, just so we can see a quick before and after, just setting a little bit of that environment in that scene. So now the problem that we have is that the background at this point is a little bit too bright. So yes, we get some attitude, we've got some atmosphere, we've got a little bit more to the storytelling, but now it's directly competing. We don't know where we should be focusing on. So for this one, I'm just going to back this off. So we have these changes, and I'll just bring it back maybe 60, 70% here, and it's still giving us lots of detail, so we have that information that's happening in it, but the focus is going right up to our primary subject, so we know where we want to be focusing at. So this is a much stronger start for this, because now we've got our primary subject and we've got a background element that tells the story. So those are the 2 things that I'm looking for on it. Are we popping out this image? Ideally, I'd process this from a raw file so that we preserve as much detail like down here in these deep dark shadows, just so that we can get as clean of a starting point as possible. Also seeing some artifacting and things that are coming up into the background elements because we lifted it so much from this dark area, so we're getting some artifact processing there. Other thing that does become apparent when I do lighten this up is that it looks like we have a bit of a pop shadow from a flash. So maybe they were holding their camera up, turned it up this way, and they had the flash that was on the camera, or maybe an off-camera flash that was coming from that side, but it's producing a shadow that comes up against that wall. Ideally, if we could go back in time and reshoot it, it'd be great to have either a softer light source or move it so the shadow isn't right behind our subject and doesn't interfere on that background. I'd love some short light on this guy. He would be so cool. And that's where it's coming from, that backside, and we're lighting like this back eye that's coming across. I think it could be a big improvement just to have that little bit more drama and dynamic aspect of it. But if we're going for something that has that really nice, organic, earthy feel to it with some great storytelling, I think our maker's here. So what do you guys think? Do we like it with the lighter or the darker aspect to it? Any thoughts? We could type into chat, or if you want to unmute. Are we going yay on this one, or nope, go back to the original? We liked it.
Yay. I like
Yay,
the brighter.
we're getting some. Okay, we like light and bright that's on here. I'm trying to get some interaction here. Help me, guys. Help me, guys. Yeah.
Chris, this is John. I think something in between there. I think it's still a little bright, still a little distracting. I like the idea of darkening it. I just don't think it's darkened enough, probably.
Ooh, so if we came down here where we were just kind of hinting at
there you
that.
go. See,
There you go.
That's just me.
This one?
There you go. Like that.
I do like that. Yeah, it kind of does. It props our subject even more. He's not getting lost in that background.
Exactly.
Which is kind of cool. So, yep, darker but not as dark as you went. Yeah.
Yeah, this looks
Good.
better than the all darkened background. Definitely.
That's coming up here. We just get that little bit more story. It'd be really interesting too if the maker has like the original file that's on here. Maybe looking at this as like an Americana type study. So we have something that's almost like an illustrated type look. Would be a really fun way to process this as well. So cool. Let's move on to the next one and kind of take a peek. So I've got storm clouds here,
I'm sorry,
and this
back
one's
on that last one, Chris. Just
Yeah.
one real quick thing. When I first looked at it, the first thing I thought was black and white.
Yeah.
Want to see what's on black?
Yeah, that's just me. I just
Let's kind of check this out. So black and white, it does have a lot of drama. So one thing that we do get with black and white is we lose all that color information. So that means tonality is exactly what we're going to be focusing on. We have nothing else to help us provide contrast. And so when we do that, notice that he gets kind of washed out just a little bit. So if we're going to go and do that, we can play. I've got my properties panel up here with the black and white. We can play and say, you know what? I'm going to take some of these yellows and pop them up. Notice how he's getting a little bit brighter. I'll do that with the reds too. Just a little bit brighter that's on here. So we get a little bit more focus coming in that face. We could also maybe create like a levels adjustment. I'm just going to pop this up so we get almost a pure white here. And let's just paint that in. We'll see what's kind of happening here. And let's get some blacks on there too. Get a little bit more drama. And now that's heavy-handed, so we'll back that up just a little bit. Right here, now we're brought into his face really well in this black and white. If we don't have the black and white on though, it looks a little bit splotchy. Kind of funny how color changes that for us, huh?
Yeah.
Chris,
But black and white would be a good one. Yeah, Bruce.
when it's in the color mode, I try to tone down those red seats because for me that draws a lot of attention right down to those.
Red does pull out that attention. And something kind of cool for if we do want to say like pull out colors, we can go to hue saturation, get this little clipper tool right here and just click on those reds. That's going to select the reds for us, and then we can just pull down the saturation right on them. Kind of cool. Take them all the way out. Notice that it is getting onto a skin just a little bit, so if we do have overlap on there, we can just quickly mask it out. So we're still brought up on him. I kind of like his hands a little bit desaturated too. That's nice. So lots of different ways that we can play with it. But I like the suggestions and the dialogue we've got going on. Okay, storm clouds. So this one's got some drama, and I had to peek at the metadata on this one. I'm like, okay, how was this shot? 2014 is when it looks like it was shot with a Canon, and they used a really wide-angle lens. This has got some drama to it. I'm loving these greens and magentas that are coming through. You don't typically see the green magenta color scheme. We tend to go more with like the cinematic blues and oranges. If you look at modern color grading, we see a lot of those ones. I'm a huge sucker on the magenta green side of things. I think it adds a nice vintage drama to it, and it just feels really, really cool. So right off the bat, when I'm looking at it, this is a lot of sky. And it's titled Storm Clouds, which means that we want to focus on what those storm elements are doing to it. And so if we're looking at this, it's like, okay, how do we tell this story? We've got a couple of different options for being able to process it. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this and pull up Camera Raw again, just so we can see kind of what's happening. And let's do a quick selection and just get the sky. Loving these quick selection buttons. They just make life so easy. We just got the sky selected, don't have anything down below that we have to worry about. And now we can play with some of the features that are down here. I'm going to come down here to the dehaze, and we're going to fill that up and add some drama that's coming into it. So a little bit, so we can get a really massively dramatic story that's coming up here. Play with that, lighten that up just a little bit. Maybe pull down just a teeny tiny bit of those highlights and lift up a little bit of those shadows. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So let that processing. Now we have really, really dark, dramatic clouds. This definitely takes the forefront in terms of what we should be focusing on. So kind of a cool way of doing that. So I'm going to leave this here as one idea, but there's something else that we can do. And I'm really, really digging this lower part of the image. It feels like this doesn't add a ton to the story, although it's kind of cool looking clouds. But what if we were to go in and do some creative cropping? So I'm going to pull up the crop tool and say, you know what? All of these kind of magenta clouds up here, they aren't really adding to the story a ton. We get that storm aspect of it. So I'm going to take this and just pull it down. And I'm going to come down here and say, you know what? Here's my horizon line. Here's the 1/3 mark. Let's bring it onto that one. This is a good starting point if you find something that you like. I'm going to make that just a little bit bigger. Find something that you like, setting that rule of thirds. It's a good starting point. I don't like to follow it 100% though. And so what I'm talking about is that by putting it at that horizon, I'm missing out on some of the cool clouds that are up here. So I'm just going to back that up so we get a little bit more that's coming up. So I might be wondering, how high should I go up with this one? If I come up here, that's too much light space. It's going to draw the attention away. So I definitely want to be below where those bright spots are. Coming down here is feeling a lot more natural. I still have a little bit of areas that are kind of bright, pull your attention away. So I'm going to come down just a little bit more. Now we've got some drama that's up near the edges, but nothing's happened. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK on this. Look at that now. So we've got kind of a really cool dramatic scene. We still have a lot of sky. It's still true to our title of this being about storm clouds, but we don't have the big, massive sky as much. We've got a really cool panoramic. So I'm now looking at a little bit of the composition, and I've got kind of a split composition where I've got roads coming in from the left and roads coming in for the right. If I'm looking at the image, my eye is drawn to kind of this barn and this pile of rocks or hay. I'm not sure what that is. Something's over here that my eye's drawn to. So I'm going to pull back up the crop tool. If I look, hey, our third mark's kind of about right there. No wonder my eye's going to it. We've got contrast there, and we're playing into that rule of thirds. But let's look at a couple of creative ways that we could crop this. I'm going to take this in from the left edge and say, you know what? What if we compress this just a little bit? I'm going to go past these lights dancing in the background and say about right here is pretty good. This is kind of a cool story. We now have a really strong lead-in that comes up. We have the exit from the frame, which is kind of nice too, but it's not balanced. It's not as equal. So we're able to focus more kind of on the heart of the image, and we're putting our subject in center. Let's look at the crop from the opposite direction. So I'm going to start on that side, and we'll drag this side in. So we come over. Completely different feeling. Now it's more about this left half of the screen, and we've got a lot of stuff happening over on this side. I'm going to undo. I think between those two, I preferred the one where the left side came in just a little bit more. This kind of feels like a little bit more of an interesting composition. We've got some really neat aspects that are happening here. So I'm pretty cool with what's happening there, but I want to show you one more technique that I think is a whole bunch of fun, especially when you have dramatic things like this. And I'm going to pull up our black and white because who doesn't love a black and white storm, right? And we're going to be playing with our color mixer that's on here. So what's kind of neat is that we've got this broken up into color channels. So I can say take like the greens and I can maybe lighten them or darken them, kind of play with some of those, or yellows. Let's lighten up the yellows just a little bit, put more of a focus on that foreground, maybe darken up some of that. And I'm just taking sliders and dragging until I think it looks kind of cool.
Hey.
Coming up here. And we're going to get somewhere right there. So we've got some drama that's on here, but I don't want this as a black and white. It had so much color and so many cool tones that were on there. So I'm going to change the blending mode of this, even though it's a black and white adjustment layer. I'm going to change the blending mode on it and say, you know what? I don't care about the color or anything like that. I want you to play with the luminosity. So the tones that we have on there. So when I look at this now, look at that kind of before and after. We've just shifted the focus from the sky to the foreground. To the sky. To the foreground. Kind of a cool way of doing that if you're ever playing with toning. Yeah, Faye.
Can you make it bigger so we can see the actual picture on the Zoom? Oh, thank you.
Oh, yep, I'm sorry. Thank you. I always like to work with a little bit of space off to the sides when I'm doing things, just so I can see what's happening. If I do that again, call me out on it. So using the black and white slider to adjust your tones, really cool way of being able to play with an image. And I'm just going to back that opacity off so it feels a little bit more natural. It doesn't have that unearthly glow. But I'm kind of digging something that looks like this. So how are we feeling about this one? Let's get the audience. Do we like the before, the after? Which crop did we like more? Was it better with the full clouds and everything that's coming up? Or was that first one that we had here? Our full drama and clouds? That direction. Or the crop? Second crop? Which one do we like best?
I like the crop.
I like
The tighter crop?
Yeah.
All right. And how do we feel about the toning or lightening up of the grass underneath?
Yeah, that's much better.
I think it's kind of fun where it just pulls that little bit in there. Not much of a change that's on there. But from the... Oh, we'll go before that one. So we have our crop, and now we just get that little bit of light that comes there. It just pops.
Chris,
So-
this is John again. I'm going to say
Yeah.
something sacrilegious here.
Do it.
But I have to leave early anyway because I've got another Zoom to go to. If the subject for the maker is all about the clouds, then why not just get rid of the barn and that haystack there and just erase it out so it's not because they are a distraction. So if the subject is the clouds, the building and the hay are irrelevant, why not eliminate them?
That's a really, really nice point. And let's talk about that for just a second. So we're looking for center of interest. So the story can be about the clouds, but our eyes aren't necessarily going to go to one specific spot. So when a viewer's looking at an image, where do we want their eyes to go to the very first time? When it turns around, or they see it in the gallery, or it's hanging up, or scrolls through social media, where do we want the attention to go? That entry point. And if there was like a cool tornado or something that was coming through, or we had some God rays that were coming through that were just go choo, 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 right there, we'd have a really strong center of interest within the clouds. Right now, the clouds have texture and they are a huge design element and they set the tone for the image, but we don't have a spot where we're going to be entered into it. And so we need something for the viewer to kind of land on, and then they're allowed to explore those details. So these do work pretty well for saying, hey, this is where I want you to enter the image and then explore the rest of it. So I think Carolyn's put it up in the comments pretty well, that without the barn, there's not much of a story that's on there. We get the cool sky.
As I said, it's sacrilegious. So.
Yeah. But this is the kind of fun thing about art, is we get to decide as the artist, like, what do we want people to be focusing on? If we wanted it so that it was only on the sky, like having this big image with all of this as a footnote, I'd probably take out the barn and the haystack that's up there and stay focused on reapply that one, on this dramatic cloud that's up there. And now the story's in this area right here. That's where our eyes drawn to, so we don't need to have these elements. But when we have the tighter crop and we're focusing on that storytelling, this element right here is where I think our story is, and I think it's kind of fun. So again, it's all personal perspective, which is one thing I love about art. There's no right or wrong answers. All right, looking at this next one, and this one's a digital painting from Yeti. And digital painting's kind of interesting because we've got a lot of freedom and flexibility, but we've also got a ton of limitations with it. We lose detail like crazy when it's coming through. So this one's called Summer Outing, and Yeti's done some really cool stuff with it. Like, this has emotion. This feels like something that you'd want hanging up on like your summer cabin, or something to kind of remind you of the youthful days of summer, right? So looking at it, we've got a reference image that's down here, and this is kind of showing us what we started with. So he started with a photo of this area and then painted in elements. And I can see that like the lily pads up here were changed up. He modified some of the trees that were coming through. So he left a lot of things, but also blended in some stuff really well. Overall, I'm digging the technique that he's done. We do have some slight inconsistencies. For instance, this area feels a little bit softer and less detailed than like this area. The trees are feeling a little bit smudgy in comparison to how sharp and detailed other elements are. So I generally prefer when it comes to paintings to have consistent treatment throughout everything. Whether that's the right or wrong answer, I'm not sure. I'm more photography versus painting. I couldn't do this, I know that one, but I can sure have an opinion on it. So I'd be a little bit hesitant on that. So I like the consistency that's there, but the overall emotion definitely working for me.
You're gonna have to wait now.
So let's look at what we can do to strengthen this image, because I think there's a couple of things that will massively change the feeling on it. When coming into competition, we have to have presentations, which is where we have our guide image and we have this white mat. For me, this mat is a bit distracting. I'm going to go ahead and select it. I'm just going to do magic wand just to kind of select those elements, and we'll get in here too. And let's create a new hue saturation. So what's nice about a hue saturation layer, notice by selecting it and then creating that layer that it automatically creates that mask for me. So now what I can do is I can hit this colorize button and I can change the tonal value, the lightness, so I can make it brighter and darker. I can change the saturation and the hue. So I can find any color that I possibly want. I can go through and find it just with this hue saturation slider. I find that really, really helpful when coming up with presentations because it allows me to see in real time what stuff is looking at. So I'm looking at this and we've got a lot of greens and yellows that are coming throughout. Green tends to be a little bit off-putting when it comes to matte selection. And so I'm going to look at some of these yellows. So I'm just going to come over here to kind of our yellow-orange area. Somewhere around here is feeling pretty good. The saturation feels very dominant. It's pulling me out of the scene, so I'm going to kind of back that off just a little bit. So we've got just a hint of color, and now we can play with the tonality. And I'm going to go just slightly darker. So here we go. I've got this before and after just on the presentation. The little bit muted colors with a little bit of warmth to it feels a little bit more cohesive for me for this piece. So I'm kind of liking what's happening there. Let's look at a couple more things with it. So right now, got a question from here. How do we decide what color works best for the presentation? So in this case, it's very, very subjective. Neutral colors are almost always safe when it comes to presentation. So our grays, blacks, and whites tend to be a little bit more safe we have there because they go with everything, right? They're a neutral color. If you are going to play in the color realm, I like to have stuff that harmonizes with the image. So not complements, but harmonizes. That means that if I had something that was all green, red would be a complementary color to that, or magenta would be a complementary color to that. I don't want that one. Instead, I want to go harmonizing with it, which means I'm going to pull with something that's near where those greens are. So I might go kind of a greenish color or a teal color or a forest green, somewhere that's in there that helps kind of pull in those colors. In this case, we had greens and yellows, so I selected something that was kind of on that warmer yellow side just so we can harmonize with some of those key elements. Because for me, the dock, the people, tends to be more what the primary focus of this is. So we've got a lot of very, very vibrant colors on here. So notice how bright and lively these greens are, and we've got really deep saturated yellows and oranges coming through our dock areas. Our blues are a little bit more muted. So generally, if we're looking at making colors work together, we want to try to figure out what one dominant color is going to be. So for me, green is not the dominant color, even though it's the most common color here. It's not what tells the story the most. For me, the oranges and the yellows tell most of the story. So I want that to be the color that really pops. Right now, the green competes with that. So what I want to do is take some of these greens and bring them down. So I'm going to create a new hue saturation adjustment layer. And I'm going to click on one of our greens that's up here. So I'm just sampling it. We got a green that's on here. So now I can take these greens and just take the saturation slider and just pull them down. And look at how that's muting it, right? So now we've got some muted greens that are coming through, yet we still have full vibrancy in our other areas. So our oranges and yellows, really, really vibrant, but the greens not so in your face. Notice how it's completely changed the feeling of this image, right? We've got so much that's going there. And we can always fine tune if you're using the selection method by kind of dragging. Is that getting too much of those yellows gone? I just drag this side in here so it just gets the greens and a little bit less. If we're missing some of the greens, we can pull this open a little bit wider. And this is just kind of how much of blending do we want to have in between those. So the vertical lines are our hard points, and then the little arrows are how much blending do we get in it. So pulling down these greens definitely pulls attention into our warm subjects. So now our center of interest are not competing with the background elements. I do find the purple and the neon oranges to be a little bit bright, so I'd probably tone those ones down or change the color so they aren't quite so neon. So we've got a little bit more variety when it comes to our primary focus areas, so our center of interest. So our dock, our boat, and our people that are over here, that's where I want the focus to be. Everything else is kind of secondary. So looking at this, our before and after, what are we thinking? Do we like muted? Do we like the original high vibrance? How are we feeling on that one? I see one thumbs up. Okay.
Thumbs up here.
Thumbs up here. So we like the little bit more muted, finding a dominant color and saying, this is what I want in here. This is what we're going to keep. And then we're still keeping saturation on the oranges. We just picked the orange yellows as our main area of focus. That's going to be the most vibrant, the highest area of contrast, and everything else is just kind of toned down just a little bit. So kind of fun seeing the muted tones here. We're going to move on to the next one. This one is Caught Mud-Handed by Sarah, and super cute title. Looking at it, we have our presentation that's coming up here, which means that we're likely looking at this for image competition. And this feels like just a cool, candid moment. I can just imagine kids out in the backyard playing with it. I know that growing up with my grandparents, we had a blast out in the garden and the hose, getting as muddy as we could, making mud pancakes and everything. So I've been there in that exact same position. Did not have a camera, but it's really cute. So let's look at what's happening with this image and some of the distracting things that we can do and things that we can change. So right now we've got browns and greens, lots of them, right? So looking at those, it's like, okay, this has some nice cohesiveness to it. But this pesky shirt that's right here pulls our attention away. We've got some tie-dye with some bright white, brighter than anything else. We've got colors that aren't anywhere else into our scene. So they're pulling attention away from where our primary subject is. So I definitely want to address the shirt and the skin that's up here so that it matches and blends in better with what we've got in our main scene. Also looking at our background, and this is just playing with the lens selection. So depending on the lens that we use when we're compressing with that one, if we are not shooting something that's got like a really, really wide aperture, we aren't going to get those creamy backgrounds. And so we got a lot of micro contrast that's here. And this might be partially from the processing. I'm not entirely sure how it's processed, but it looks like we may have gone up with some of the texture slider or clarity slider or played with sharpening, which affected the whole image globally. And if we did that, yes, our subject's going to be nice and tack sharp, but we're also going to start introducing some of that into those background elements. So we want to be mindful about doing those things. So let's start tackling these one at a time. I'm just going to duplicate this layer and let's start addressing the shirt first. So I'm going to come up here, camera raw filter. There we go. And we're going to use our smart masks again. I'm going to come up here and we're going to let this find our people. And let's look at the clothes. It's going to get the rest of this coming up here too. And we'll do body skin all in one. And we're just going to say, okay, let's create a mask. So I've got the clothes and body skin. Sure, it's got areas that I don't want as much, but we can address those in just a little bit. First thing I want to do is pull down this tonality. So I'm going to take these highlights and just pull them way down. And we can go with exposure way down too. So we are getting darker in tonal value that's on it, but notice that it's getting a little bit muddy feeling, right? We don't have those crisp, clean colors, so we need to introduce a little bit more color to it. And I'm kind of using his face as my reference in terms of what healthy looking skin looks like in this lighting and in this environment. So I can cheat by, say, taking my temperature slider and kind of warming it up a little bit, just introducing a little bit of yellow into that skin. And we can see that we are getting kind of that yellow, but almost jaundicey, so we want to kind of introduce a little bit of magenta, so those red undertones that are coming through. Look at how much better our skin is starting to look. So we're getting some cool stuff that's happening here. Our shirt's toned down pretty well. So now we do have all of this stuff that's hitting other areas of our image, which we don't want to do. And we could mask this out inside of Camera Raw, but I find that to be a little bit more complex. So I'm just going to go ahead and say OK and let it apply the image. And I'm going to put a negative mask over all this. And so now it's not applying at all. So we can come in here and we can start painting into our image. And it doesn't matter if I'm painting on the background. See how my mask it's applying there? Because we only use those masks inside of it. Anything that I paint on here is going to be just showing what those changes are. Just like that. So we got some nice color. It's now more in tone with what the rest of the image is. It's not pulling attention away as much, but we still have a lot of colors that are not in our scene. So this is where we have to make a decision. Do I want to stay faithful and accurate to what the scene was, what the person was wearing, or do I want something that kind of embraces the artistic side of things? I think if you were going to go with competition, I'd probably continue some of this mud up into his shirt so it looks like he's totally covered with mud, which can be kind of fun to do. If you're not doing that, though, and you want something that's a little bit more realistic for what the scene was, we'd leave it as it is. But I can definitely see we've got those reds and blues, so I'm going to do kind of a hue saturation adjustment layer. Let's take some of these blues over here, and we're just going to desaturate those a bit, and maybe change the color a little bit, see if we can pull out some of those greens more. And I can see that I need to expand that just a little bit so it gets all those. Now we're into the greens that kind of match the scene just a little bit. Let's do another one that's playing with our reds this time. And we're going to hit up our reds and saying, you know what, we don't want as much saturation in those reds. Notice it's hitting everything, not just our subject, so I'll have to mask that back in. Where we're coming in and just playing that down. And let's maybe make that a little bit more orange or muddy feeling. There we go. And so that hit everything, so I'm going to invert that mask, and then we can just strategically paint it in. Controller Command I will do that for us. And I don't want that on the skin. There we go. So let me put those in a group, and we'll just say shirt. Nope. I didn't do that right. There we go. So we can see that before and after with the colors just kind of takes a little bit of the prominence away from it. I'll put both those together too so we can kind of see a quick before and after. Next thing I want to tackle is that background that had that contrast in it. I'll show you a really cool way that we can instantly go from shooting with a lens that maybe is a minimum aperture of f4 to something that has a minimum aperture of f2.8. And so with this one, I'm going to come back to our magic masks and hit that background. And I'm looking at this really, really harsh micro contrast that we have there. And so we can scroll down to the effects section and we can see texture. And I'm going to take the texture slider and drag it all the way to the left, which says remove texture. Look what happens when we do that. It just softens that up just a little teeny tiny bit. So it makes it so that we don't have as much sharp texture as we do on our primary foreground element. So this looks pretty nice. You can also play around just a little bit too if we did want to say like lift up some of those shadows. That way our high contrast area is where our subject is and low contrast area isn't where our subject is. So low contrast is in that background element. So there we go. Pretty simple changes that are coming throughout. Green is still a very dominant color, but for me, because we only have two colors in this, it kind of works. And the green isn't a neon color, and the browns and oranges are very, very saturated. So this has a natural feeling to me. So here's our before and our after. How are we feeling about this edit? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay on this one. Oh, what about black and white that we have here? So if we were to put it in black and white, this could be kind of cool, clears up all of our color issues and puts all of that focus in there. Black and white could be a strong choice for this one. Kind of back that up just a little bit. Could also go a very muted one. Could feel kind of cool. I like these muted colors throughout where the orange almost feels like it was shot on Kodak, huh? So different ways of looking at it. Kind of fun. All right, let's check out this next one now. And this one's from Wallace. And we've got a lion that's yawning. And Wallace was kind enough to send me the raw file to work with versus his crop. And I want to show you a couple of different things that we can look on it. And this was inspired by our zebra from last week. So as we're looking at our image coming through, we've got a lion and we've got a lot of area that's around him. So this isn't necessarily, the background elements aren't necessarily adding to our scene. So we're going to want to crop. Just like we did with the zebra last time, we want to find our strong center of interest. And let's take this in and see what a strong crop for this particular image is going to be. So I can see that all of this tree up here, it's not really adding a whole bunch to the scene or the environment. So I'm going to go ahead and start pulling it down to the top of his hair. It's like, okay, all of that's gone now. My next consideration is that I've got a very, very tight bottom of the lion's mane. And so in an ideal world, I would have loved to have a little bit more, but my guess is he probably wasn't hanging out in front of the lion for too long and probably running at like 25 miles per hour just to snap this shot. I don't know, I would be. So we are in pretty tight on this one, and that means that we have to embrace this aggressive crop. And so with us embracing that, we probably don't need the very, very top part of this. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull that down just a little bit. I'm going to get rid of that kind of bright spot that's in that background. Now I've got a really nice solid vertical composition that's here. So I can start looking at some of the other choices. How much of the space do we need to keep on the right or the left? Now it might be pretty tempting to pull them in on both sides. And if I come over here and pull both those in, make it bigger for you, Faye. There we go. So if I'm pulling that in there, this is kind of cool. This is a really, really tight headshot of a lion. Might tighten that up just a little bit, keeping those eyes on that centerpiece. It's kind of cool looking. This would be something I'd be happy hanging up on my wall. But, I got to reapply that crop now. We're going to come up here, so we're missing out on that spot there. I'm going to pull in this side because there's not a whole lot that's adding over here that tells to that story. So I'm just going to bring that in. So we've got a little bit of breathing room over here. And now I'm looking at the body, and I kind of like the body being in here versus it just being a tight headshot. I've got a little bit of atmosphere, something that's happening with this, a little bit of environment that's showing. So I'm going to take this in. I don't necessarily need all the body, but having maybe the lion's head taking up 2/3 and the body trailing into 1/3, kind of a cool thing. I'll back that up just a teeny tiny bit right there. I'm kind of digging that crop. I think it's something that's visually interesting. We've got all the focus on the lion, yet we still have some motion. We've got some environment. We have some scene. And the aggressive crop on the top and bottom don't feel out of place. So I'm feeling pretty good right here. So let's do some basic cleanup that's on this. So I'm going to make that bigger. And I'm just going to do a new layer and do our magic brush here. What is this one called? I can't think of what it's called. Spot healing. There we go. Brain fart. Spot healing brush, and just clean up a little bit. I don't know what's in his beard or what he was snacking on. Probably a monkey or something. We'll get that out of there. Some grass is gone. Stuff that's not necessarily adding to our scene. So do be mindful depending on which category you are entering, because this is wildlife. Some competitions are totally okay with us doing the spot stuff. Others are not okay with it. So make sure you're checking out the rules of the particular competition. There's some flies on here. I don't really like them. I'm going to get rid of them. Stray eyebrow. We're going to get rid of that one. Okay, we just did some basic cleanup. Nothing too big or fancy that's on it. So now I can start with the toning. My favorite part, looking at tones and colors. I'm going to create a stamped layer on this, Control-Alt-Shift-E or Command-Option-Shift-E if you're on Mac, just so we've got a clean one to start with. And let's bring up Camera Raw again. So first thing I want to do is kind of work on this background. It is really high contrast with these highlights and those deep shadows. We want to try to balance that out, flatten that out. So I'm going to use our quick masks again and go into the background. And it's going to select everything except for the face of the lion. That's great. I can take some of the contrast that's down here. I can take maybe the exposure down just a little bit. Pull down those highlights quite a bit. Maybe. There we go. It was thinking. Lift up the shadows. We're just kind of flattening this out. And there we go. Just like that. And let's have a little fun. Let's maybe warm up this background just a little bit. It's a nice sunny day out, right? Yeah. So we got a little bit of warmth that's there. And let's use that texture trick that we used on that last one. Just softening that background just a hair. So we can say, okay, this looks pretty good. And we're just doing this in stages. We're going to let this apply, that background element. now it feels like it's a little bit more cohesive. We got some environment that's on there. Next thing I'm looking at is this body right here is really cool. I get that it's in the shade, but it feels like it could be a rock, could be something else. Let's warm it up and have it match the lion just a little bit. Inside of the adjustment layers, we now have one that's called Color and Vibrance if you're on the latest version of Photoshop. So I'm going to hit this Color and Vibrance button, and look at this. We have a nice white balance slider. So I'm just going to warm this up so it's just hitting that area. Go a little bit aggressive there. I'm going to invert my mask so it doesn't apply and get a nice soft round brush. And now I come in here with white. There we go. And just paint it in. Get right up there. Just that little bit. We just warmed it up. If you get too much, we can always mask it out. There we go. Kind of before and after on that. And if it's too much, just back it off just a little bit. I'll go just a hair. There we go. Now let's pull some attention into our main subject, the big one. So I'm going to open this back up in Camera Raw. I just did a stamp layer again because I love stamp layers. I can't get enough of them. And we want to have a dramatic face. We want to pull into the power of the lion. And so with this one, we need contrast. We need tonal contrast. We need color contrast. If there's another type of contrast, we need it. So I'm going to go ahead and bump up this contrast and say, you know what? Let's take some of these highlights and pull them way down, but our whites, we're going to pop way up. This gives us a really nice contrast coming through. Deepen down some of those blacks. I like kind of that little bit darker feeling that's right there. We're looking good. Let's maybe warm up the face just a little bit. Maybe bump a little saturation in that face. Look at that. We got a nice kind of contrasty here. I think those highlights are still a little bit too hot. We'll pull those down. There we go. Look at that. Now we've got some contrast. It applied over the entire image. We don't want it over the entire image. We like to have the rest of the image a little bit muted, so I'm creating that negative mask, and we're just very gently going to go pop, 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 pop into the king's face. Look at that. Now we're using color and tones. We've got the most contrast in the scene happening right on the face. We've got the warmest, most saturated colors right on that face. We're definitely playing into our central subject. So now we did have some light that was kind of sneaking in through those trees. And for instance, we've got some spots like right here, some coming across the face. I don't mind the ones on the face as much. But this little bit of hair that's being backlit, it's really, really distracting. So let's go ahead and take care of that real quick. And to do that, I'm going to just use the lasso tool, just select around that area where we want. And I'm going to use the generative fill feature inside of Photoshop. I'm not going to type in anything. I'm just going to hit generate, and I'm using the Firefly model of it. Oop, I deselected. Let's do that again because I was showing you. And there we go, generative fill. That's a tongue twister. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. Again, you are going to want to check with your competition because we are using generative elements to see if that is allowed inside your competition. Most of them for small things like this or generative crop, they're totally cool with. But if you're going to be doing big changes like adding in like a zebra in the back, that's not cool. So again, just check with it. And I've got 3 options here. We can see which one we like best. I'm going to go with option 2. And that fits pretty nicely. The before and after, I think that just keeps the focus in on our face where we want it to be. So I'm going to do one more kind of finishing touch on this. So new stamped layer, and I'm going to come up here to filter, camera raw filter. And this is an unusual way of doing a vignette. And I think it's kind of fun and is going to work brilliant for this one. So I'm going to come over here to our mask tool again, and I'm going to select a radial gradient. So with a radial gradient, I can draw a circle or an oval. I'm going to back out so we can see what's happening with this. Come in just a little bit more for Faye. And so with this, a traditional one, we're going to kind of have vignettes on the corners, kind of like you had a lens shade or filter that was coming on. But I want this to feel like maybe we're seeing a spot of light coming through the trees that are just kind of lighting our subject. So I'm going to get right here, not even getting the entire lion that's up there, just kind of cutting across the background element into his face. So this is the direction that I want to have my light, and I want everything else to be dark. So I need to invert this mask. So I'm going to go ahead and invert this mask. Bam, now everything's selected except that central part. So now I can say, bring down those edges. I can maybe desaturate them just a little bit so we aren't focusing as much in it. And maybe lower the contrast just a hair. Go ahead and hit OK on that one. And here's our dramatic lion picture. That's what that non-traditional vignette look like. And if it's too strong, just back it off just a little bit. I'm kind of feeling something about right there. All right, how we feeling on this one? Before and after? Yay, nay? Too much? Kind of cool? Not enough? Any questions on it?
After.
We like the after. Okay. We're doing something right if we like it. Again, this is all personal preference. This could be a really cool painted technique too. If we're going to get Yeti out here, he might be able to paint it for us, do something kind of fun with it. But I just like controlling where are we looking at. And we're playing with color and tones to be able to say, this is where we need that focus. Most saturated, area of highest contrast, you're locked in on that lion. And if we wanted to, we could also do something kind of fun, like making the eyes pop. I'm going to do just a new curves layer, just for funsies on this. And I'm going to change the blending mode from normal. And we're going to come up here to screen. I'm going to invert that so we don't see it. And just get a soft brush. And just say, you know what, let's add a little bit of light in there. A little bit of light. We don't need much. But can pull some, and we'll back that off because it's a bit heavy. Somewhere around here. Notice how we just add that little pop into those eyes. So kind of a fun way of doing it. And that's just using a screen mode with a curves layer that did it. All right, we're going to be moving on. Up next, we've got an image from Yeti that says, I will bring you more food. So this one's kind of cute, and it's got some amazing composition that's happening here. So what I'm digging with it is that we've got these birds that are coming through. Great space, movement, direction. It's got a great crop with some really, really nice grounding that's to it. So there's a lot that's working really well here. I have no notes when it comes to what our crop is. I'm looking at tonality now. And specifically what I'm seeing is, let's pull that bar out of the way so we can see it. Yeah. Specifically what I'm seeing is we've got a lot of muted pastel colors that are in the sky in our presentation. So good choice on this mat for what this sky is. Notice how this harmonizes. We picked the blues, it's playing it, it feels there. Brown is going to be complementary to that. So everything's just working really, really nicely together. So the area that kind of hitting me is that we've got so much deep, dark, heavy texture that's down here, and we've got such light muted tones everywhere else. So this means that we either need to embrace the darkness or we need to lift up everything so that we have the lightness. And let's look at what both of those are, because I'm not sure which one's better. So I'm going to make a duplicate on this one, and let's go camera raw filter again. And let's just say, you know what, our shadows, let's lift those. Oop, not the whites. Shadows. So when we lift the shadows, we get some cool stuff, and I'll pull down these highlights so we aren't as contrasty. And we'll kind of flatten that out just a little bit. There we go. So we're kind of lightening it up so we don't have as much of that dark, dramatic look to it. So we get almost more of a pastel or painterly. So everything feels more tonally harmonious, yet we still have our strong central interest, or center of interest that's on there. So this is an option one. I'm just going to call this one lighter. And now let's look at the second option of how we might do something. And I'm going to duplicate this one. And I want to embrace all the drama that's there. And let's look at a technique that we played with earlier today with our black and white filter. I'm going to come up here and click the black and white filter. And now we can start playing with some of these tones. So now this is a JPEG, so we're going to get a little bit of banding and stuff that's coming through. But if we have the original RAW file or a 16-bit TIFF or something, we won't. And I'm going to say, you know what? Let's take all these blues that are back here and let's start embracing them. So I'm going to take our blues. I'm just going to pull those to the left. Our cyans, I'm going to pull that in. We're getting a lot more drama that's coming up here now. You can see if there's some greens. Not really doing much. Our yellows, ooh, we could pull those ones down too. That's got some cool aspect. Our reds, just a little bit maybe. Think of magentas, not much. We'll leave that kind of lighter. So we've got some really interesting tones that are coming through on this black and white. Bear with me on the sky. Again, we're working with a lot of extreme changes on a JPEG image, which is going to do this. But I think it was cool in color. So I'm going to take this black and white and use our trick that we did before and say, you know what, from normal down to luminosity. And when we do that, we get something that's got a really dramatic punch to it, right? So we've got a lot of deep, dark drama. Imagine the clouds are still smooth, but we have that same tonality. But now it's not as contrasty or stark when we see the deep, deep shadows that are in the birds. So here is our lighter version, our darker version, and our original. Which one do we like better? Light, dark, or original? Anybody?
I
Darker?
like the dark better.
The drama?
Dark.
It's not there. I like the dark too and the drama that's happening with it. I think this would be really fun to process and see if we can maintain some of that stormy aspect of it and really lean into those darks. So now our area of highest contrast is right at that bird. Versus before, our area of highest contrast is right up here or maybe in that area. So kind of cool way of looking at that. We're going to move on. Got this one from Dana, and this one's In the Quiet Hours. And so this is a character study, and holy cow, there's so much going on with this that is just masterfully done. I gotta change my color so we can actually see it up against this one. So let's talk about this and kind of dissect it just a little bit more about what's happening here. So we've got a motivated light source, which means that we can see the light source or where the light's coming from inside the subject, and it's going to be motivating us or actually lighting our scene. So very commonly, you'll see this in movies or things where it's like, oh, here's a lamp that's sitting on here, and that's providing a little bit of extra light. Or like if you look at my picture, I've got a lamp that's behind me over here. There we go. Somewhere right here, a lamp that's there, and it kind of feels like it's providing my hair light, even though I've got a separate hair light that's going on. So we kind of imagine that the light comes out here, and it's lighting our scene this way. And so this is a motivated light source. I love it. It just adds such high production value to it. If we can kind of convey, like, this is why this light exists and what's happening. Now, with the angle that this one's at, this light's actually going something like this, where it doesn't really hit our subject. But the maker decided to add this in, and we've got it coming up here. If they had pointed it at our subject, then it'd be a really, really hard, abrupt line that's up here. So compositionally, I think they made the right choice by saying this could realistically light our subject, even though this light at the angle probably isn't actually the one that's lighting our subject. Other things that I can see, kind of dissecting the image just a little bit, if I'm looking at like the tip of her nose right here where that shadow is coming up to the nose, I can see that our light source kind of comes up this way. If I look at the shadow that's up here versus the shadow that's casting it, I can tell that it's coming up here. So I know my main light source was probably something like this, kind of shining down, lighting our entire scene. So this is pretty close to where that was. It's within the realm of believability for me. So I like what's happening here. So let's look at the image and what's going on. So the scene, the environmental study, all the details that are here are just so beautiful. I feel like this is my grandma and this is something she'd be doing, and it makes me smile. So I think the makers definitely accomplished that. But there are a couple of things I think we can do that will enhance the message even more. Specifically, I'm getting a lot of light that's on that shirt. It is very, very bright. Also get quite a bit of light that's on the hair and a little bit that's on those knuckles coming through. So that's a lot of stuff that kind of competes with our main subject, which is this intention that's right here with a little bit of these subtle details over here. So how do we address that? Well, glad you asked. Let's pop into Camera Raw filter, because that's the theme, right? Camera Raw. What can't we do in Camera Raw? So let's start by doing a couple of specific edits, and I'm going to go ahead and use the Select People one, and we're going to say, you know what? Let's find our clothes. I'm going to go with clothes on this one, and just pull down those highlights just a little bit. And it's feeling a little bit crunchy, so I'm just going to lighten those shadows, pull down those highlights. There we go. Got something that's a little bit more subtle now. I'm kind of digging what's happening here. Let's address kind of the hands and the arms. So we're going to create a new mask again. We'll go back to people, and we're going to do body skin. So we'll get the neck, the hands, and the hair. Create that, and let's just back that off just a teeniest little bit. Not very much, just a teeny tiny little bit, so those fingers aren't quite so glowing. And I'm pretty happy with what's going on with there. Now let's look at the rest of the scene. We get some pretty dark, contrasty stuff. So I'm going to come up and we're going to select the background, which will select everything except our primary subject. And in this case, I'm just going to lift up those shadows quite a bit. So we're kind of lightening up what's happening inside of our scene. Those blacks just a little bit. Get a little bit of that pop. There we go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK now that we've done all of our extreme toning. And so now we have an image that we definitely are focusing on right here, and we've got more of these environmental details. However, it feels a little bit like almost cartoonish, almost illustrated versus being a photograph. So this is heavy-handed, and I love when I'm doing these initial edits to be very, very heavy-handed, because then I can just take this opacity slider and I can bring it down. So I think somewhere around right here feels pretty good. I'm about 50% on what that is. Here's kind of a before and after on those things. After, I think we definitely have a little bit more coming into that story, which I really appreciate. If we wanted to, we could keep that focus right on this and her face a little bit more by doing some strategic toning coming through other areas. But this is one that I think has already been pretty masterfully done, so it's coming down on more of the subjective feeling to things. So what do you think? Do we like the higher contrast that feels more naturally motivated, or do you like the ones where we get a little bit more of that atmosphere and the focus stays on the face and the embroidery? So what are we thinking on here? So got yes on the after and need to play with camera raw on there. So again, this is all personal preference. There's not a right or wrong answer, but it's kind of fun to see the different ways we can do things. All right, we're going to look at one more image tonight. We're almost at our hour on here. And this one is another painting by Yeti. Kiss Me, You Fool. Kind of fun, kind of cute. So we're looking at our image. We've got two painted horses that are on here. So I am not an expert when it comes to painting. There's a ton of great people that are doing some really cool things in the painting world. But I can tell you about composition and what catches your eye, which is what I'm looking at here. And we've got some really nice complementary colors. So remember how we said that, like, hey, that matte choice, you generally want to find something that's going to be harmonious with it. And be like, okay, why wouldn't we have picked an orange for that? Well, looking at our background, our greens are harmonious for what that is. So now our subject is going to pop because the background choice is already complementary to it. So this is a good example to the exception that we talked about before in terms of presentation choice. I do see a little bit of cleanup and some inconsistencies. For instance, there's something kind of happening up here. We've got maybe a little bit of lack of shading that's coming up. We've got kind of a chunky boy that's up here. We lose a little bit of face detail and blending that's coming. Oh, I'm using the spot healing brush and all this, not my paintbrush. There we go. Well, you saw what I was painting at before. So we want to try to maybe adjust some of those during the painting process if you can. I can't instruct you on that technique because that is way beyond my skill set, but I can show you what we can do to pull focus into our storytelling. And what I'm looking at is we've got some really bright areas that are pulling attention. We've got all this stuff that's kind of competing for where we want our core element, the kiss me. And so we want to figure out how we can adjust that. So I'm up here in camera raw filter. I love it. And let's start taking down some of these highlights. And I'm just going to go highlight. Let's pull that one down. Shadows, we can bump that up just a little bit. Whites, let's pull that down. Maybe decrease some of our contrast and darken everything just a little bit. All right. We got all that going on. I don't want that to affect my matte. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a selection right here and invert it. Select inverse. So now I can create a mask on that one. And, oops, I did that backwards. I shouldn't have inverted that one. I thought I already had a mask when I did that. Okay, so I inverted that one. So now it's only affecting the interior part of our image, not the exterior part of it. So we have our horses that are now way darker, but we don't have an area of focus. So I'm going to come over here and we're going to paint with a black brush, just nice and soft. I've got my hardness set to 0 and say, you know what? We want to kind of focus on this area of the horse. Maybe down a little bit there. Maybe a little bit of the story coming up. Maybe a little bit of that ear. That's a cool ear. I like it. Got some nice stuff happening here. A little bit coming here. I'm going to switch it so I'm painting with white, so it's going to darken it back up, saying, you know what? Maybe I don't want as much focus right there because I want that contrast to be coming through. So look at that. We've got just a little bit of tonality that's up here that's changing. I'm going to adjust that, so maybe about 70-80%. How are we feeling on this one? Do we like the darkening, or do you prefer the light and bright for the entire thing? Kind of back and forth, not sure. I'm getting some thumbs up. Okay, so darkening, controlling where those tones are, what we're looking at with it, and if there's a particular moment or something special, we want to try to showcase it. All right. It's hard to believe it, but it's been an hour already. I love it. Thank you so very much for joining me, everybody, with another episode of Office Hours. If you do have images that you want to have featured on this for us to go look about, either email them to me, or if you click the registration link, there's a button that says upload images. I would love to have a variety of images that we can look at. All different skill sets are totally welcome, so we can start looking at the decision-making process. Because remember, this is all about the decisions that we make, and the stronger the decisions we make, the better the decisions that we make, the better your photographs are going to be. Thank you so much, everybody, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye, everyone.